Well, hi everyone. I am Lydia Tiller, as she just introduced me, and I work for Amboseli Trust for Elephants. My talk today, I'm also going to wear the hat of some other elephant organisations in Kenya, Save the Elephants and the Mara Elephant Project. So today I'm going to talk to you about how we can use elephant tracking data to understand human-elephant interactions and how we can understand the usefulness and effectiveness of different mitigation methods that are being using. So I'm going to do this by highlighting different examples of studies that we've been conducting in Kenya and sort of applied applications of collars. So thanks for coming, because I know this session is a bit of the graveyard shift of the conference being the last one, but yeah, I hope to not see any nodding heads. So radio collars were first used on elephants by Save the Elephants founder, Dr. Ian Douglas Hamilton, back in 1969. And really since then, the technology has really advanced, and there's a lot of different applications of tracking data. So we can use it across Africa to help guide security patrols. It's often used for poaching and human-elephant conflict. But they've also really advanced our understanding of elephant movement, elephant behaviour and connectivity. Yeah, and we can really start to learn how elephants move in different landscapes. So this is an example of an area next to the Masai Mara called the Trans-Mara district. And you can see the elephants, when the screen goes dark, that's nighttime, and the elephants go out into farmlands. And then in the daytime, the elephants hide out in the little patches of forest. So they use these as sort of staging posts before going into people's farms to eat those delicious crops. So yeah, from this data, we can really start to understand different movement signatures of this type of behaviour. And I'll show you some examples a bit later on some of the things we have learned specifically on elephant crop foraging. Oh. So just backing up slightly, so in Kenya, many of the elephant collars that we use, we set them to fix every hour. And so every hour, this data feeds into a central database, which we use a platform called Earth Ranger. And within this database, it can pick up really quite sophisticated algorithms in the system. And this has been really useful for practitioners on the ground. So, for example, if an elephant stops moving for more than 5 hours, we get an immobility alert. This is usually, or sometimes they just like to rest under a tree for hours and not move, but sometimes it's more serious. So elephant might have been injured or poached. So you can get an alert sent by text message or email. So that's really useful in the field. We also have algorithms that pick up when an elephant crosses a virtual fence. So we call this geofencing. And this is an example here. So this area is farmland in Kenya, in a place called Sagala. Maureen knows it well. Her PhD is there. And this blue line is the virtual geofence. So if an elephant crosses into this area, we get the text message. And so it's really useful. So we can then decide what to do. We can deploy ranger teams to then push the elephants back out of the farmlands. And then finally, there's also different movement algorithms built into the database. So if an elephant moves very quickly, then the database picks this up. So we call this streaking in elephants. So if an elephant moves more than 2.5 kilometers in an hour, it's usually as a result of a perceived risk. And on the tracking app, it comes up as this streaked line. So a really good example of how we use this in the field and apply it is an elephant, a beautiful elephant called White Satao in Savo in Kenya, a great tusker. And we saw that he went outside the national park. This is the boundary here. And this area is quite risky. So there's lots of illegal grazing, there's lots of charcoal burning. And then suddenly we saw that he streaked for about 18 kilometers. So it was picked up with this red line. So we thought that was quite unusual for an elephant to run so quickly back into the national park. So we sent out a ranger team to see if the elephant was okay. And he had been speared. I don't know if you can see it. But it was great because we were able to intervene, get the vet, and luckily Wide Satao was treated. And he, I don't know if I said before, he's a great tusker, so there's not many great tuskers left in the world. So, collaring some of these individuals is really important for security. Oh, okay, there we go. So tracking elephants has also enabled us to understand specific behaviours of elephants in risky landscapes. So, for example, when elephants move through human-dominated landscapes, they often, it's a very risky behaviour, and they often move a lot more quickly. And we call this, so they move quickly, and then they also show low tortuosity. So tortuosity is basically how wiggly a path is. And so when elephants are just out in foraging for crops, they move a lot slower, and they show high tortuosity. So then their path is more wiggly. And so we had a PhD student in Savo who was trying to see whether during crop raiding, whether elephants balance this risk avoidance behavior, or they move slower, but in this more risky situation, and show high tortuosity. And so she found that just before crop raiding, a few hours, so when elephants were going towards the farmland, elephants had a very high speed, and they had low tortuosity, so they were sort of on a straight path to get to those farms. But then during the time on the farms, they actually slowed their speed down and showed the behaviours of what they usually do when they're foraging. So they sort of balanced that risk to be able to sort of intensively forage while they were on the farms. And then as soon as they left the farms, then they had that high speed again and that less tortuous movement. So they were on a mission to get out. Another study of this was 66 collared elephants in the Mara Serengeti ecosystem. And they found that sporadic and seasonal individuals actually make up 67% of recorded GPS fixes in agricultural land, compared to 32% from habitual individuals. So basically, within a population of elephants, you have quite a large proportion of that population that may go into farmland seasonally, and it can not necessarily every season, and that some will just randomly go into people's farms. So they might be on their natural path and then see a field of maize, which is a very tasty treat for them, and then go and crop raid. And this high proportion of sporadic and seasonal tactics highlights the importance of mitigation strategies that address matters from arising from many animals. So rather than, because often we target management on these habitual crop raiders, but we need to think also that there are, within a population, elephants are capable of going into farmlands. And this is a good example of strategies that are used to focus on these habitual crop raiders. So translocation is a tool which is more and more commonly used, especially in Kenya. And this is to remove the problem elephant from one location to another. And it is an easy way for wildlife authorities to appease the community. You move the elephant away from the area. And so in 2018, we managed to collar 5 elephants that were being translocated from the north of Kenya to Tsavo in the south of Kenya. And these elephants were all deemed as problemed elephants. But it wasn't a very successful translocation. So 3 out of the 5 elephants were poached. One went out broke the fence and went out and actually got speared in the community. And you can see here, this is a map of the elephant movements, and 2 of the elephants, they really didn't move very far after being translocated. So maybe they were quite stressed after that experience. And then one individual, he within a few weeks, he broke out. This is a fence line here, you can't really see it, but he broke the fence quite a few times, and then this yellow area here is farmland, and so he continued to. Oh, 2 minutes. Oh, God. Okay. I'll hurry up. So he continued to go into people's farmlands after translocation. Only one elephant we could deem successful. It was a young bull elephant, and he went into an area away from human settlement. I'm going to whisk through my slides a bit quicker because I've taken too long, but we also collared some more elephants in 2021. Basically, we found through tracking them that as soon as they were dropped, they then attempted to get back home. So this elephant here, within 1 day, he left the park and then travelled all the way to the north. And this journey is about 400 kilometres, so a huge journey that the elephant took. So again, that data is really useful for us to assess, the successfulness of these translocations. We also use tracking data to help us identify potential areas of conflict. So a great example of this is from an elephant called Manolo, pictured here, who's also my favourite elephant in Kenya. And we collared him in the national park. We thought he would just be staying in the national park, but he actually took us to an area that we didn't really know much about. And so the red lines are his tracks. So when we saw after a few weeks, we were seeing he had this quite interesting movement. It was quite, he was exhibiting quite routine behaviour. And when we zoomed in, we could see that every day he was going to the edge of the lake, and then in the evening leaving, going through community area. And so we wanted to know what was going on, what was at the edge of this lake. And so when we went there, there's a huge array of reeds that the elephants feed on. So it wasn't just him, it was some other really big bull elephants. But it was a bit concerning because where the elephants like to be, these huge reed beds, was in a community area. So these are people's houses here, a fishing community in Savo West. And people use this channel to get into the lake for fishing. And you can see Manolo, the elephant, is actually here. And then there's lots of encounters with elephants here. So this was the fisherman on the boat. And so this led us to, we wanted to know what was going on here. No one really knew about this area. And, you had elephants at night. They leave the reed beds. They eat the reed beds in the day, and then they leave, and then they go through the community just meters past people. So yeah, then we went back to, I'm really over, aren't I? Okay. So we went back to the area to carry out a rapid rural assessment to understand what was going on here, understand how people perceived the elephants, how the tolerance levels were, and if there was anything we could do. I can talk to you more about the results later. I have one more, just 30 seconds, yeah. And just finally, just to end, we've also used tracking data to understand the impacts of linear infrastructure. So this is a scene from Savo again. This is a new railway that was built in 2017. This is a very busy highway called the Mombasa Highway. And these 2 infrastructures cut right through 2 national parks. And so we collared some elephants in 2016 to see the impact of this railway on elephant movement. And we found that it did have quite an impact on movements for some of the elephants. 30% of the elephants never crossed crossed the railway, so they were it was too risky for them. But for the ones that did, they changed their behaviour. So they used risk avoidance behaviours when they did cross. They used underpasses, but they would travel at night and they would increase their speed while going over the train. Also during that time, after the railway, we did see an escalation in conflict cases, and that was because elephants were blocked from getting into the park. So historically, they would move through the community and into the park, but now they were stuck in this small area, so they sort of decided to hang around and eat crops. Yeah, sorry for that whiz at the end. Thanks for listening. Yeah.
Time for one quick question.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask if you found something about elephants traveling faster in non-protected areas than in protected areas, which would suggest they have a pretty good idea of where is the risk.
Yeah, so there have been a number of studies looking at movement in risky landscapes, and we've found that in outside protected areas where there is human settlement, elephants they move a lot faster, and they'll move during the night time. So you won't generally see them in the daytime moving out. The case study of these elephants in Jipe is slightly different because they're so used to humans. They're not really very scared of them, and they had this quite interesting coexistence with the people here. But yeah, in risky landscapes, they change their behaviour, move quicker and move at night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.